GMC and Chevrolet are in big trouble. Let's get it on the screen here. This is really serious, very, very problematic for them, and it actually has a carryover effect potentially to all automakers. This is potentially going to hurt everyone. This was actually really well covered by Meet Kevin. Meet Kevin talks about stocks. Love his show. I think he's a fantastic individual. If I was in the States and he ran for they don't have parliament, but as a politician, I would absolutely vote for him. Meet Kevin, great guy, very, very intelligent. So he covered this on his show. Now, here is why GM is in huge trouble, because they're acting like criminals again. So that's the title to this episode, GM in huge trouble, GM acting like criminals again. Because I remember very well, I believe it was 2014 or 2015, when GM basically, through some investigating, despite them declaring that their trucks had nothing to do, the manufacturing team had nothing to do with their trucks just dying while, turning off when you're on the highway, it was discovered that GM heads had decided to continue to save a few dollars on the key ignition, the quality of the key ignition, because the weight of the keys could have the contact be removed. And with no contact at key ignition source, the whole vehicle could turn off. So people had accidents. Some people died. And GM just kept denying the emails, the exchange of information between heads of engineering and the heads of the company were revealed, and they were revealed to essentially be acting like criminals. Now, this type of criminal negligence would get individuals very much arrested and for very long periods of time. If you're in the United States and you don't know how much your truck can tow or how much payload your truck can have, or you're lied to by your car dealer, this is serious. If you have an accident and it leads to someone's death, you will be charged with criminal negligence. For example, if your vehicle doesn't brake in time and the accident kills somebody and you're over payload or were towing more than your truck allows, you are going to jail. This is serious. No one at GM went to jail. This is why companies continue to do these kind of shady tactics. It's horrible. But let's bring it up to today. A little bit of history. That's what I sort of have my degree in. Anyways, I won't get into it. I really like history. Now, and I went to university for way too long. I should have gone to a trade school. We need more tradesmen. Thank you so much for all the truck drivers out there, the tradesmen out there. You keep society running. The bricklayers, the electricians, the plumbers, you keep society running. Thank you so much. Now, if we want an equal society, a certain group really needs to get working on having, groups that are for, promoting rights and fairness. They need to make sure that more women get into plumbing and electrical work and construction work. You love that kind of work. But some groups only want to see certain results and don't want to look at things from a huge perspective. But let's look at the wider, broader, general perspective on GM. There's some history of naughtiness, and they've done it again. They're acting like criminals. So here's the story. GM Cruise self-driving taxi proves that GM is in major trouble, as they should be, because GM's Cruise has been serving as an auto taxi. Story time, folks. Yes, I've been talking about how car prices are going up, and they're going to overall continue to go up. I think they'll stagnate and stay relatively similar for the next 3-4 years. Just like how when we see big peaks in construction, they'll go up, they'll stay essentially barely go up for 10 years, and they'll have a huge increase all in one shot, essentially every 10 years. I do strongly believe that we are moving towards a future where most people get pushed out of vehicle ownership because of the cost and just the overall cost of living, and our money is going to be going to other sources. And auto taxis are the future. This was one of the reasons why I'm I'm invested in Tesla. And I'm not invested in GM. And this is the type of reason why I'm not invested in GM. I do not see GM as a safe bet, because they're not exactly betting on our safety. So here's the story. It is believed that a Cruise auto taxi hit another pedestrian in California, but that's actually not the truth. The GM Chevrolet Cruise auto taxi with no driver did not actually initially hit a pedestrian again. This is what happened. So in California, car in front of the auto taxi of the Chevrolet Cruise was driving, did hit someone, and did a hit and run. So let's hope they catch that person, and that person learns a lesson. You know, people generally from every age, we go through life effing around, and if we never find out, we just end up being effers. People, there need to be consequences to people's actions. Otherwise, they don't learn. And this is true for so many things going on right now. A lot of the bad things you see going on in life is people thinking they can get away with things. And this is a bad instance of, a company thinking they can get away with stuff, even though we already knew they're acting like scumbags back in the 2014-15 truck ignition scandal. So the Cruise didn't hit the person. That's not where things get sketchy. The car in front drove off. They need to find out. Now, what GM did, which, it's kind of borderline, maybe it was accidental, but, well, the Cruise did end up hitting the person because it wasn't able to brake. The first vehicle hit and drove off, and then the Cruise, last minute, because its vision had been blocked by the vehicle in front of it, didn't have time to stop completely. It actually stopped on top of the individual, on top of the pedestrian. Now, of course, California police, highway safety, they said, actually GM was just like, here's the footage. So GM was really great. They were forthright. They gave out the footage. But here's the problem. They shared with highway transport and the California police the footage, but not all the footage. Because the footage they showed the Cruise, showed the vehicle in front, doing a hit and run, and that the Cruise, seeing last minute that someone was, on the ground, it did its job. It recognized that someone was in the way and it braked. And it ended up on top of the person. That's where they cut the video. Well, California police and highway transport, they're not a bunch of dummies. They said, we want more footage. And the footage after showed the Chevrolet Cruise then trying to kind of park out of the way, to move out of the way. And the pedestrian got, I believe, dragged for about another 20 feet. So that's pretty awful. Was it deliberate? Is it an omission of the truth? I know GM afterwards, it looks like the letter that the publication, what they publicly said is, that they were forthright and they gave out the information willingly. So they weren't forced for it. They weren't, they gave it out before being requested. But they didn't give out the whole footage. And the whole footage showed a pretty sketchy story. But here's the thing. Could a human have done this better? Imagine if you had someone underneath your vehicle, is your reaction to leave the weight of your vehicle on the person? And then when police and ambulance show up to first responders to help that individual, they can't because they're underneath your vehicle. I think most people would just, freeze, be in shock and panic, and actually think that the vehicle, except for the whole 20-foot situation, but, having that person not be underneath the vehicle, I would think, I'm not a paramedic, but I would think that's step one. That's the first thing that needs to be done, because you're not going to treat the person underneath the vehicle. You're not going to transport the person in the entire vehicle to the hospital. You need to get that person not underneath the vehicle. So I don't think that what the vehicle did was bad at all. However, how will the safety organizations treat this situation? If they see it as GM breaking trust, they're not going to be wanting GM doing auto taxi. And well, guess what? The Cruise self-driving experiment has been suspended. So, October 24th, 2023 was released that the public safety remains the California DMV's top priority. So they've suspended that license to GM. Now, hopefully they don't see this, or hopefully, or maybe not hopefully, but let's hope everyone isn't affected by this and they're just now anti-self-driving, because when it comes down to it, I think self-driving with AI will improve, but I'm for and against it. I think that overall it is going to drive better on average, far better on average than most individuals. There's some pretty horrible drivers out there. Share your stories in the comments section, or if you're watching this as a live, throw it in. I'm sure we've all seen some pretty horrible drivers on the road. Share the story. We need to hear it. I think vehicles will be driving a lot better than your average human, that the overall less accidents. But at the same time, I don't want to see taxi drivers unemployed at all. And I am worried about the overall effect that this will have, less vehicles. This will make it so that certain laws, for the sake of the environment, can be made, making it so that a whole class of citizens can't have vehicles. And really, there's a lot of, when it comes to vehicles being, certain types of vehicles being banned, certain types, EVs slowly being forced onto us, all for the sake of the environment. Coincidentally, EV vehicles, huge losses when you sell them, so it's causing gasoline-powered vehicle prices to go way up. Ford, to be able to fund their EV vehicles, which they themselves say they lose $32,000 per vehicle. Rivian losing $33,000 per Rivian that they sell. What is it causing? Well, it's causing Ford, GM, Dodge to survive, to not have to pay billions of dollars in carbon credits or dollars towards, either fines to the government or buying carbon credits from Tesla. I mean, they're making a huge deal on it. Part of the reason why I'm invested in Tesla.